Hi guys,
What's up, everybody?
I'm Mike and I'm here together with the one and only
Peter.
Welcome to another MSI Insider livestream. It's been a while for me actually.
It has, yeah. You've been away, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been moving to another house and I moved from 50 megabits per second internet connection to a 1000 megabit per second internet connection.
You rate your houses in terms of
Exactly.
internet connection.
Well, actually, I wanted
right?
to move internet connection, but there was no fiber available at my old address, so I moved.
So basically, you moved into a new internet connection.
Exactly.
Is kind of what you're
And
getting
another house came with it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's just a bonus, though.
Yeah. Today we will also talk about internet connections, by the way, especially upload.
Oh man, are you going Linus on the segways? Speaking of internet connections.
No, but my download was 50 on my previous address, but now the upload was only 5 megabits per second.
Oh.
And that one is now also 1000 megabits per second.
Yeah, I mean, poor you. For Dutch standards, that was really like, you know.
It was bad.
It was
I didn't have fiber there.
1960s internet.
Yeah, so much better now, much better now.
Yeah.
Xayo was also asking in the chat, what about upload speed? Both are 1000 now.
So you've got now 1 gigabit.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
And I'm dragging cables through the house to have a proper cable connection everywhere.
Yep.
Levi is saying on YouTube chat, Mike and Peter look like Tom and Jerry. We do.
No
Wasn't
idea.
aware of that.
Who's Tom? Who's Jerry? I want to know.
So today we've got some older components.
Yes.
Not ancient components.
I mean, when you say older, right? And,
It's
and
like,
stream hardware was like leftover hardware.
Yeah.
And we were going through this, and I was already saying like, I think a lot of people would consider this hardware, you know, quite recent still. It's
The
not
stuff
the
here,
latest.
right here, it's still
Yeah.
faster than the current PC I have at home. But this is from the previous generation, both in terms of CPU, motherboard, graphics card, etc.
Yeah.
Which is, well, it's useless in a sense for us that usually in our live stream, of course, we always talk about the latest generations.
Yes.
So today we're building an Intel platform. Nowadays Intel is of course at the 11th generation, but today we're going to use a CPU from the 10th generation with 400 series chipset motherboard. And of course NVIDIA is currently at RTX 30 series. Today we're going to use one from the RTX 20 series. So these are samples that we've been using in the past in our live streams, in our videos, etc. But of course, because there is new hardware now, we don't use it for that anymore.
No.
So we decided to recycle it basically. And we're going to build a very nice streaming PC out of it.
Yeah. And I mean, this is not just for the purposes of this stream. We are actually going to use this streaming PC, if I'm correct,
Yeah,
later
definitely.
on to replace our current streaming PC, which is
The PC we will be building today will drive the future MSI Insider live streams.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not just for fun, it's not
No.
just for educational purposes. Of course, it will serve that as well.
Yeah,
but
we
this
thought
will
we're
be the
gonna have
actual
to
PC.
we're gonna have to make an upgrade of our gaming PC, or streaming PC anyway. So why not, you know, do a live stream about it? Because I think a lot of you might be interested in you know, learning more about what kind of decisions, how do you make the right choices if you're gonna do this, what kind of hardware is you know, is suitable for this, and which kind of what kind of hardware is not. So I think today is really about not just, you know, seeing Mike, you know, taking out a screwdriver and putting a PC together, which, you know, fair enough, is already kind of fun to see, but also in the process while doing that, giving you guys a rundown of the kind of decisions you have to make and the kind of things you can decide on while building a PC, like building a streaming PC, and what you have to mind while doing it to get the right outcome.
I see a question in Twitch chat. If it's a dedicated streaming PC, yes.
Yes.
We will also talk about, for example, what you have to keep in mind if you're not going to do a dedicated streaming PC, but if you want to game and stream on the same PC. But for this specific example, because this will be our MSI Insider live stream PC,
Yes.
that is indeed a dedicated PC. And of course, we sometimes use gaming systems as well, but we never stream on those. It's always a dedicated PC that takes care of the live streaming. and gaming, for example, happens
We'll
on
get to that, because actually it might not be necessary in our current setup how we do it, but we will get to that, because in the end we'll also tell a bit in the process about how we, when we started livestream, when was that, 2017 or something?
I think so, yeah, it's been a while.
Long time ago that we started our weekly live streams, and you know, we didn't always have a dedicated setup. We started really small and then improvised stuff, and then, you know, while doing the live streams we learned a lot of things and then tried to improve things along the way. Anyway, we'll get to that as well.
Yeah.
As always,
Mr. Masterdox is asking, what's the current stream PC specs wise? It's an even older generation, so 9th gen Intel Core. It actually has quite a decent
old.
GPU.
9th gen. Oh.
It's it's still it's not
even that old,
extremely old.
Yeah.
But now we're upgrading to 10th gen. With in this situation, later on we'll go more into details, but this is an RTX 2060 that I have in front of me. And later on we will explain why we picked specifically this GPU.
We can throw the specs.
There you can already see what we're going to build. You might have already recognized some of the components here.
Yeah.
So not the latest and greatest components today, not 11th generation, not the RTX 30 series. We're not using Z series chipset, for example, just a B series today. We're not putting in 128 gigabytes of RAM, just 16 gigs is fine for this situation.
I mean, it's not a render PC, right, to be fair. So that's, if you also want to do rendering on it, there's a bit of different things you might be looking at. Maybe Mike can also say that while he's building it. But because, yeah, then you, for example, you're looking at perhaps a bit more beefy CPU and especially more memory, I guess, for the
processing.
Yeah,
a lot of memory and CPU power is what you need then.
Yeah. But other than that, as a basis, it's pretty fine for streaming and rendering alike.
We've got a 10400 today, Core i5, which is a very, very capable CPU in terms of what this system needs to do. But it's not something that, for example, if you're going to edit 4K videos and you want to do rendering, you're not going to do that on a PC like this. You can, of course, but it will take you some time. Yeah,
yeah. I'm also seeing a lot of people saying, oh man, the 9th gen, that's already making my PC look ancient. CJ Bill, I mean, really good to see a lot of people that we see pretty much every stream to join again. Yeah, to be honest, I think I upgraded my PC at the end of last year. And I had an i5, what was it, 4690K.
So 4th gen.
Sorry?
I'm still running a 6th gen right now, 6600K.
But that was a 4-core, 4-thread part. And I mean, even then, up till about, well, already with Cyberpunk, I was really hitting some limits there. Because those, I mean, you know, a lot of games weren't really using that much CPU power. And you could still, I mean, that thing was overclocked to 4.5 gigahertz, I think. So even in games like CSGO, which really relies on a lot of CPU, single core performance and stuff like that, you could still get really good performance. Obviously, upgrading to a later system now, a newer one, boosts even much higher. But
right now
up
you're
until
running
then,
a 5600X, right? Ryzen 5?
Yes, yeah, Ryzen 5 5600X, which yes, it's a massive boost, but you know, I was kind of like, you know, as long as it runs fine, then no need to upgrade. Of course, graphics card you upgrade every now and again, but yeah. So
and of course,
you know, to be fair, it's not like all of us at home have like, you know, all the latest systems and then, you know, upgrade every year or every month, or that's not really the case. Of course, in our work here in our office, we have some of this hardware lying around. That's also why, for example, at my home, I wouldn't consider this hardware that we were using today being old or left over. That's
this will outperform my my computer in every single way.
Yeah.
But it's not the latest generation that you usually see. But it's also just a bit of to give you an idea that if you are into live streaming and you want to go, for example, to a dual stream setup, you don't specifically need the latest, extremely high-end hardware.
No.
For example, if you move to a new PC yourself, you might be able to reuse your old hardware or your old PC to serve as a dedicated streaming PC.
Yeah. To offload your normal gaming PC. Yeah. Carl A is asking the real questions, but are the fans RGB?
No.
I don't think
Not
so,
today.
right?
No, I don't have many RGB components. The motherboard has some
They're still
RGB.
being used in all other
Yeah.
systems, right? Yeah. It's
We're using the MAG B460 Tomahawk motherboard, and that one has got some RGB underneath the chipset heatsink. But other than that, I think we don't have any RGB at all. We have some LEDs in the RAM, but it's just white LEDs, no RGB. We're using a Ventus graphics card without RGB.
Yeah.
We're using the Sekiro 100P, which is the black version without RGB. But it will disappear under a desk where Peter is currently sitting. So yeah, we
currently
don't
that's where our current PC is still located.
and we're not going to game on it, so we don't need the extra FPS that RGB of course provides.
Yeah, indeed. So for streaming, RGB is not that important, at least for a dedicated streaming PC. Yeah.
So not an RGB live stream. Sorry guys.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
We hope you still
RGB
enjoy it.
is life. By the way, as every stream, we also have some giveaways today. So over Mike's shoulder, you can see that we are today giving away some Steam wallet codes, $20 Steam wallet code. So don't miss out on that. You can visit the Gleam link. I think the bot should be spamming it every 5 minutes, right? I think the timer is set to, every 5 minutes.
On Twitch and YouTube, that is.
On Twitch and YouTube, indeed. The other chats are blocking URLs and stuff like that. So if you want to make sure you participate and see the link, you are best to go to YouTube or our Twitch channel, and then you should for sure see the link, the Gleam link. Go there. Basically it will ask you to perform some actions. The more actions you perform, every action adds points basically to your tally, and then at several points during this live stream we will draw randomly some winners out of the back end of the system, and then we'll announce them and we'll get the Steam codes out to the winners.
Also, if you're a returning visitor, make sure to claim your loyalty bonus.
Yes.
Because if you visited multiple streams, especially once you visited, I'm not sure what the intervals are, but the more
it already starts
streams,
from 2 streams.
Yeah, the more often you participate, the more you can add to your loyalty bonus, and that will slightly increase your chances of winning. Not massively, of course, so you still have a chance to win if you're here for the first time.
Yes.
But returning visitors do have a slight edge in the giveaway.
Because, we just love people that watch our streams on a regular basis.
I see a question in YouTube chat. Why does MSI have such a low number of gaming mice? We don't, right? I think we have quite some models.
It really
nowadays.
depends. It could also be, in some regions the models available could be less, but in total, indeed, I think we have a pretty okay lineup. We are kind of in a transition at the moment, though. So some mice indeed might become end of life, or not available anymore, and be replaced in time in the coming half year with a different lineup. But I think we have a decent lineup indeed, with some entry-level models, some mid-range. I think the only really area we might be lacking, if you want to call it that, is really like the really high end, like with ridiculous things like OLED in the back of your mouse. Don't really know if you need that, but I think otherwise than that, we've got right-handed mice, we've got
ultra light,
symmetrical, ultra light indeed. So that one of our latest mice, latest and greatest, I think, could say, is the GM41 lightweight, which is a really good mouse. Really light, really good sensor. Yeah, we did a whole live stream on that a while ago. So if you want to know more about it, you can of course find it in our playlist.
With the teardown.
Yeah, we did that together, right? We showed also the difference between good gaming sensors and how you can actually see and notice if they are good or not, with things like angle snapping and
how you can test your own mouse to see what kind of sensor it has.
Correct. So anyway, feel free to look into that, and hope there's something for you there if you're looking for one.
Yeah.
It could be fun to hide MSI stickers in your build as Easter eggs to see if your office mates can spot them.
I think I've got a bunch of stickers.
Our office is full of MSI logos anyway, so I'm not sure they would notice. Maybe they would just think, they went a bit overboard with the MSI branding on this product, but
Yeah, plenty of logos here in the office.
Oh yeah,
no worries.
Yeah. People don't really tend to notice them anymore. Anyway, So where do we want to start, Mike? Do you want to first go over some of the hardware, or do you want to cover the theory first?
Let's go a little bit into the theory.
Yeah.
Makes it easier to explain why we're choosing for certain components.
Yes. So, wait a minute. There we go.
There we go.
Sometimes
Yeah.
NDI
Sometimes
capture is
stuck.
a little bit delayed. Anyway,
Yeah.
so we tried to make a very short overview for you guys. Streaming platforms, so there are quite a few. I think the main one people will be familiar with is Twitch in the middle, but YouTube actually is has become quite adept at streaming as well, and offering a lot of, well, basically a lot more choice alongside. And Facebook also still does streaming, even though it might not be the most well known for it.
And we stream to all of these simultaneously for the MSI Insider live stream. So all of these are relevant for us.
Yes, and even Twitter, which is called Periscope, but I'm not really sure what the status of that is.
Yeah, I think they shut down Periscope, but it's still possible to stream to Twitter.
Something like that, yeah.
And in the past, we've also been streaming to Mixer. But that one doesn't exist anymore.
When that was still a thing, indeed.
Yeah.
So we basically put the main three in our experience, and also, I mean, this kind of focuses on our streaming setup anyway. We've put the main three together here to also show you some similarities, but also some of the differences. Of course, live streaming, yes, you can do on all three. Although on Twitch it's max 1. Also, big difference on YouTube and Facebook compared to Twitch is that YouTube and Facebook will create like an instance. If you live stream, it becomes like a post, basically, like a news item, which means that you can, on the one hand, you can refer people to a very specific link if you want to refer them to a stream. On the other hand, it also means that if you just visit YouTube or Facebook, it might be difficult. You have to scroll down sometimes to actually find the live stream, or it might just be featured at the beginning of the page. With Twitch, it's kind of like a TV channel, is how I refer to it. As in, it's basically you go to the Twitch page, and if there's something, if you're streaming, then it will show. And if you're not streaming, then basically there's nothing there other than maybe some video on demand or previous streams you can rewatch. But there's not a whole lot else there to do when you're not streaming. So that also presents with sometimes with a challenge, which means. Twitch, you basically are expected to be a lot more active, so basically almost streaming every day, perhaps at a set time, so that people know when to tune in, basically when to go to your Twitch channel. Video on demand, of course. YouTube is the biggest one for video on demand.
It became big through video on demand.
Yeah, that's really its thing. Streaming is kind of like I want to say a side gig for YouTube.
At this point.
Yeah, at this point
might
at least.
Change in the future.
Of course, yeah. And to be fair, they are investing quite a lot into it, which you will see later on as well.
And also expanding YouTube gaming, for example.
Yes, yeah. Twitch, again, it focuses pretty much everything on live streaming. That's its main thing, its main purpose. But it also has some video on demand, of course.
So basically the opposite of YouTube. YouTube became big through video on demand.
Yes.
So uploaded videos.
Yeah.
And Twitch really became as big as it is now through live streaming.
Yeah.
And it has some video on demand features. You can watch back streams.
Yeah.
But it's not focusing on the video on demand aspect of things.
That's rather limited actually.
Yeah.
And also I think even if you're not a Twitch partner, I think then your video on demand will only be available for a certain amount of time, and then after that they are gone.
Yeah. For YouTube, they will just be there until you remove them, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. What is on the internet? What happens on the internet stays on the internet. That's kind of YouTube. It's like a video archive. Facebook, it's a little bit more advanced in terms of video on demand, but also it doesn't really focus on it because it's more like a content sharing, status sharing thing. In terms of resolutions, that's where also one of the major differences is. I think YouTube and Facebook were later than Twitch in supporting 1080p, but YouTube has since kind of surpassed Twitch in at least the possibilities. So YouTube actually at the moment already supports 1440p and even up to 4K live streaming. which, as we will show later on, requires a hell of a lot of hardware and bandwidth to do.
So basically you need an extremely fast upload for that.
Yes, yeah, but also the PC, you know, the encoding and everything, but we'll get to that. Twitch and Facebook currently, I mean, most people will stream at either 720p, or which used to be known as HD ready, or 1080p, which of course is full HD, which is doable for most systems and most connections, I guess. The max FPS is, I think, for all platforms still limited to 60. Which sometimes for us is
Twitch
a shame.
is experimenting with higher frame rates.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if that's already publicly available to everyone. But
yeah. Because indeed, also for us and for gamers, you know, they usually tend to, if you're using a 144 hertz or 240 hertz monitor or something like that, sometimes we also want to show that. But it's difficult because we can't show anything over, the stream will just be 60 FPS regardless for you guys. Also, it depends, of course, on the hardware you have. If you don't have a screen that's capable of high refresh rate, then it's kind of pointless because you can't really see the difference. HDR is also one of those things coming up, of course. So HDR support, YouTube is currently also the only one that has it. Although, again, it's also, I think it's still kind of in development. Not a whole lot of people are using it yet. It also really depends on how many people have a monitor.
Device that can display
watching it on a display that can actually even display HDR. Otherwise, again, it's kind of pointless.
But more and more phones are also able to do that nowadays.
Correct. Yeah. Actually, I think maybe there will be more phones at this point that can display HDR than there are PC monitors or people using them.
Yeah, PC monitors are still quite limited. On TVs, it's also becoming more and more common.
Yeah. Anyway, so this will be rolled out in the coming years. You know, more people will have it, then there will be more demand for it, and it will be interesting. We will also be looking into it at some point, of course, to see if we can show some of this content in a live stream, HDR supported. Twitch and Facebook do not support it as of yet. Again, maybe it's also a matter of time. And the bitrate, I mean, yeah, you can see a massive difference. This is up to, or basically the recommended bitrate. For YouTube, the max bitrate of 51,000 kilobit per second, that is, right? Yeah, kilobit per second. Is ridiculous compared to the other two, but that's basically because that's the highest value based on a 4K live stream, 4K 60 FPS. Then you're up to that kind of
So don't worry, if you're streaming in 1080p to YouTube, you don't need to have an upload like that can handle this. Then you can do it much lower. But of course, because YouTube supports these very high resolutions, you also need a higher bitrate to go with it. Otherwise, it's a very high resolution, but it will still not look good.
No, indeed. Twitch, I think the recommended resolution is, the bitrate is 6,000 kilobit per second. Yeah, I think you can go a bit higher, but then you do run the risk that Twitch will run into some issues, I think, but I'm not sure indeed. But 6,000 should be fine for 1080p 60 FPS. Facebook, a bit lower, 4,000 kilobit per second. I think you can also try a bit higher, but again, when you don't use the recommended value, you run the risk that it may give some issues or affect the image quality, because it maybe the platform cannot handle that bitrate correctly.
You're pushing too much data, basically.
Exactly, and that can scramble the image or something like that. Anyway, those are the mainstream platforms. Again, most people, what they will do is they will choose one platform and then stream, of course. What we are doing is streaming to multiple platforms at the same time. To do that, I think first, we have an overview here of the required bit rates and bandwidth, basically. So, and this is taken from YouTube's website, by the way. So that's the reference we're using right now.
Mm-hmm. And this is important because this basically shows you what you can do with your upload speed. Yeah,
what kind of connection you have and what you can actually do with it. So if you, I think, Mike, you were saying that you, in your past connection, you had a 5?
Yeah, in my previous house, until like less than a month ago, I had 5 megabits per second upload. Yeah. So as you can see in this table, I was able to stream in 720p, 30 FPS, and it looks decent.
Sad face.
Yeah. Now I'm at 1,000 megabits per second, so now I can do 4K 60 without any
unlimited
issues.
Power.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. But I mean that's kind of what it is. So and it's a huge difference. So really depending on your upload speed and your bandwidth available indeed. And don't forget, I mean this is just the stream. So if you're running a game at the same time, or maybe even some voice communication, VoIP program in the background, that also needs a bit of bandwidth. Sure, it won't be as much as this, but everything adds together. So yeah, here you can really see if you go to 1080p 60 FPS, which I think a lot of people will be aiming for, because again, that's I think the most used resolution and then frames per second at the moment. You can see that you already need 11 Mbit per second.
That's if you want to stream a maximum quality. You can do it with a little bit lower, of course. For example, if you're streaming to Twitch, you cannot even use that 9,000 kilobits per second, for example.
No.
So it depends a little bit. The limit that Twitch has is also a reason for some people to stream at a slightly lower resolution, because especially in very fast-moving images, it can give you a little bit of better image performance if you use, for example, 60 FPS instead of 30.
Yeah.
Because with the same bit rate, it becomes more and more difficult if you higher your resolution, because you have more pixels to fill, basically.
Yes.
Another important thing to mention here is that when picking the value of your upload speed, always base this on the minimum you always have. Because if you have, for example, 10 megabits per second upload on average, but sometimes it drops to 8, then you don't want to take those 10 as the value you're going to set up your stream with. You want to take the 8 as that value, because if it dips, you don't want to drop frames or run into any other issues.
Exactly. So, for example, 1080p 60 FPS, but you run it at 6,000 bit rate, for example. You will be looking at what, 9.5 Mbit per second?
Yeah, approximately.
Something like that. So indeed, so it's kind of like again, it's a margin of error and a margin that you have. So these are the highest values basically based on quite a high, or the max bandwidth, the max bitrate settings. So this is kind of like, if you have this, you should probably be okay.
Gamerzone is saying on Twitch, 720p 60 FPS is best. It depends a bit on the platform. On Twitch, I think many people will agree with you, because then you get basically 6,000 is what the bitrate you need for a high quality 720p 60 FPS stream.
Yeah.
So for Twitch, definitely 720p 60 is a really good setting, if of course your upload can handle the 6,000 kilobits per second bitrate.
Yeah, a lot of people, of course, looking and checking their connections to see what they could do based on this table.
And of course, this is only based on the internet speed you need.
Yes.
But you also need a system, of course, that can handle the encoding of a certain resolution.
Yeah, I see a lot of people also asking, indeed, like, okay, I have a PC, so is it basically, can I play and stream on this PC at the same time? It really depends on your system, of course, but right now what we do is we are, of course, building a dedicated streaming PC. So we basically take the streaming out of the equation of the gaming PC as much as possible. Also because for us, a lot of time we are, for example, showing new hardware, and then you want to show the raw gaming performance, for example, of that hardware. So you don't want the streaming to impact the performance as much as possible. Again, this is sometimes difficult, but taking the streaming out of that system that you're already using to play games will allow you at least to show a more accurate representation of the performance people can expect if they're trying to play a game on that system or that hardware without streaming at the same time. I think maybe let's go to the next one.
I see Hussein is asking, how can I check? I'm not sure if you're talking about your network speed or your internet speed or your hardware. Network speed, of course, there are quite many speed test
I think
websites.
speedtest.net is one that's quite
It's one of the most popular ones.
Yeah.
There you can see what your upload speed is.
Yes.
It's best to check it multiple times, times during the day, so you can see what basically the lowest value is you're getting.
Yeah, because it will always vary depending on. I mean, sometimes, like we are quite lucky in the Netherlands because a lot of people like Mike now also has fiber, which basically means you have a pretty much guaranteed speed. But if you are having cable, which I think was what you used to have, right? So that really depends on if people in your neighborhood on the same connection from the same provider, what they are doing. If maybe all of them are trying to watch streams at the same time or downloading stuff, downloading games, then that will also impact the speed that you can attain on that connection, which means you'll have a lower speed. So yeah, it really depends on your situation. Anyway, why build a dedicated streaming PC? Well, in our case, and in general, you do it to offload resources, which means that on your the PC that you use to game on, you want maximum performance. You want a smooth experience.
So basically, you don't want that system to do anything else just than running that game.
Yeah. And of course, some of the PCs these days, especially the more higher end ones or the ones with ridiculously high specs, they can quite easily handle a live stream and playing games at the same time, but it always impacts performance a little bit. And let's say the older your system or the less high end that your system is, the more that impact will be. Also, if you for some reason need to reboot your gaming PC, your stream will stay online. So which means that some people, I've seen it happen in the past as well. I'm watching a live stream from somebody and they are streaming on their PC. Some friends of mine have done this. And then suddenly, stream gone. What happened is, for example, their PC froze or crashed or something. It can happen. But then your stream is also terminated because, there's no longer a signal being sent. If you move that part to a dedicated PC, then it doesn't really matter if your gaming PC crashes or you have to reboot it or whatever. Because the other PC is still sending a signal to the platform that you're streaming to.
And this is also why it is super important for us to have a dedicated streaming PC, because we're fiddling around with hardware all the time. We're swapping out components midstream. Of course, in some situations, if you're swapping out components in every situation, you basically need to switch off your PC and reboot it again. We really need a dedicated streaming PC here, but also for many gamers, I would say it's very useful to have a dedicated streaming PC. Definitely, if you want to take your stream to the next level, then I think it's I wouldn't say must-have, but it's a very interesting upgrade to your stream, I would say.
Well, let's just say most of the, if not all of the really big and successful streamers will be using an external, a dedicated streaming PC.
Yeah, like the really bigger streamers, I would say all of them use dedicated streaming PCs.
I mean, maybe it's not within everybody's means to do this, and that's why we are basically also saying you can use if you're upgrading to a new PC, for example, you can use some of your old components or your old PC even.
You don't need a Ryzen 9 or a Core i9 and an RX 6900, for example, or a 3090 or whatever.
No.
Even with relatively moderate components, you can build a very, very decent dedicated streaming PC.
Yeah. Especially also if you're streaming only to one platform, which again, what I think most people will be doing.
But there are some tricks as well to stream to multiple platforms on a moderate PC,
which we will also show you.
Yeah.
Basically also no need switching between programs, which means that a lot of times, if you're streaming and gaming on the same PC, it means that you have to do everything on that same PC. So if you want to do something like switching passwords or logging into something because you want to check something, then I think it's happened to a lot of streamers as well, is that you accidentally put it on the stream.
If you're ordering a pizza and you have to fill out your credit card information.
Or just logging into something and you kind of like accidentally show the password or whatever. So it also reduces the risk of doxing yourself or disclosing information that you really rather not disclose, because you can just hide it behind that system. It's also possible in this way to let somebody else, if you're like working with friends or something, again, you know, we are with two persons, which means that, for example, in this case, Mike is the host and I'm the director, as we call it, like a roles. So what I do is I'm in charge of, you know, switching the scenes, camera angles, stuff like that.
And today I will be building a PC, but for example, I could be playing a game here or whatever.
Yeah. And then it's quite useful to have somebody else in charge of, you know, things like you know, where people, what they're looking at, what's on the screen. So you don't have to multitask too much. If you just want to focus on what you are doing on the stream, for example, building a PC or playing a game, you pretty much want to focus on that. But this lets you then also have somebody else focus on the other aspects.
Of course, you do need a second person for that.
Yes.
So you might, for example, your little brother.
Yeah, but that's again, you know, if you've got a couple of friends or something, you can do it together. I mean, I guess it also makes it more engaging and fun because it's, you know, again, you're not sitting there alone anymore. You're there with multiple people. Mm-hmm. And last but not least, you can also, in this way, make old hardware useful again. So, you know, where most people, you know, if they upgrade to a new PC, what they will do is maybe they will sell their old PC or they will give it away to somebody, or in the worst case, they will throw it away if it's if they think it's useless.
And the stuff we have here right now is still relatively recent. Yes. But even if you have a somewhat older PC than this, you can still very well use it as a dedicated streaming PC. Of course, it very much depends on what kind of resolution are you going to do, what do you want to do with it exactly with your stream. Yeah. But it might be that if you have, for example, a system that is already 2, 3, or 4 years older, that it might still be very capable of what you want to do with your live stream.
To be honest, like for example, that system I was talking about that I came from, right, with an i5 4690K. Mm-hmm. It's 4 cores, 4 threads.
Yeah.
Hyperthreading might be better, but still, that system could very easily handle a single high-quality stream.
Yeah. 720p, 60, decent quality, no problem.
That thing is 2014, 15-ish, I think, pretty much. So that's, in terms of PCs, that is considered quite, well, not really old. Again, it's still pretty decent, but yeah. And at the time, it wasn't even like a high-end system, an i5. It was like more like a mid-range.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of hardware is perfect for this, or maybe even an old laptop can also be used. All right.
TDK is asking, is this PC going to have a tempered glass side panel? Yes, it does. It does have a tempered glass side panel.
The real question is, does Mike have a safety hammer there?
Not today.
And like, you know, one of those safety visors to shield him from the glass.
I'm not destroying anything today. At least I try not to.
Yeah. It's not the intention today.
No, not the intention.
All right.
I cannot guarantee it, but
yeah. All right. Then, of course, there's the hardware part, which we were just discussing a little bit, but also, of course, streaming software. You need some software to help you basically encode everything, package it, and send it to the streaming platform of choice. And there's a whole lot of choice there. But we've put I think the most used and most well-known down in a list for you. Mm-hmm. First, we've put the ones that are basically at everybody's disposal. So when you have a graphics card and you install the drivers...
You need to have a very old graphics card.
Yes. If you don't want this kind of... Yeah, then you will not have this. Yeah. But to be fair, I mean, if you're using an NVIDIA graphics card, you do need to install, I think, GeForce Experience. Otherwise, Shadowplay is not available, right? It's part of GeForce Experience.
Yeah, I believe so.
So if you don't install GeForce Experience, which is possible, then you probably will not have access to Shadowplay. But it is a pretty good tool, which allows you not just to record gameplay locally, but also with quite minimal impact, I think, right? That's also one of the benefits of using Shadowplay.
Yeah, because Shadowplay uses NVENC, so that's the dedicated encoder that NVIDIA has on their graphics card. Yeah.
But also it allows you to directly, for example, link to your Twitch account, or I don't know if YouTube is supported, but you know, to your streaming account, and basically you don't need any other software or any other things to set up. Of course, it might be a bit limited, so you probably will not have a lot of plugins available with, you know, effects for if somebody subscribes or whatever.
Yeah, it's a little bit basic. Also, you cannot put in stuff like we have, like the name tags and multiple cameras and stuff like that. So I think you can add your webcam, for example, and of course you can use your microphone.
Yes.
So it
some
can do
basic
stuff like that.
functionality, indeed. Yeah. But you know, if you're new to this and you just want to try it out, then this is a really easy way that doesn't require any additional effort. Basically, you already have access to this. So in NVIDIA, it's part of the GeForce Experience package. It's called Shadowplay. Or on the AMD side, you also have it. It's part of the Adrenaline software package, and it used to be called Relive or Relive. I don't know, but what I could find now is that I think it's just called streaming in the software, and this can be used only on the same PC. So in our setup, this is not very useful because again, we are building a dedicated streaming PC. So for us, this doesn't really apply. But for a lot of you guys, if you just want to try out some streaming and stuff, this could be an easy way to do it.
This is a very easy first step if you want to basically find out what streaming is like.
Yes.
And if you like it or not, then
just fiddle around with it. You know, get a feel for it. That's you know how many people I think start. They just try something and see what if they like it and if they are interested in it.
Could you quickly check if YouTube chat is still working, by the way?
Yeah, I haven't seen many YouTube.
I have before.
It was working. Let's see. Oh, no, we've got an error there.
It seems like we're not getting YouTube chat
Damn.
anymore.
Okay, then I might just open a separate window with YouTube chat.
Okay, we're trying to fix that.
Yeah, because we do want to keep an eye on all the chat messages, guys. Normally,
I noticed that I didn't see any YouTube messages for a couple of minutes,
which is strange because usually YouTube is one of the more active platforms. So let me just quickly pop out.
Yeah, let's quickly take a look and see what we missed in the YouTube chat.
Here we go. Oi. All right. Yes.
Yeah,
now
there we go. We're back.
What's the prize?
$20 Steam Wallet code.
Yes.
That's the prize in the giveaway.
Yes. All right. Cool. Yes, Marek. It's
yes,
working.
Marek. We can see your message.
Testing.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yep. Rip YouTube. Not quite yet.
We're back.
Yes. It's just in our setup. Sometimes it happens because again we're using some third-party stuff, which we will get into in a bit. All right. You've got also XSplit Broadcaster. This is actually a program that we used to use when we started streaming. It's very user-friendly. I think very easy also to get into. Very intuitive. Also offers a lot of nice possibilities, some plugins as well. And what it can also do, quite uniquely compared to most of the other software, is it can stream to multiple platforms at once. And we've actually done this. So basically you can, for example, have a Twitch stream and a YouTube stream at the same time. The only difficulty or challenge you get with this is that
depends on your system if it's a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. But for most systems, if you're also playing a game on that same system, yeah, that's definitely going to be an issue because
it takes a lot of processing power.
Yes, because it means that what it will have to do in XSplit is it will have to encode the stream twice, so separately for each of the streams, and that takes a lot of resources indeed.
It will encode one through your GPU, so for example NVENC, and the other one on the CPU. So that will take quite a lot of processing power of your CPU in order to be able to encode the stream. It depends a bit on the system, and if you're using a dedicated system for it, then it might not be an issue. Yeah. But this is something, if you're going to stream to multiple platforms and do the encoding, one on the CPU, one on the GPU, and then going to game on top of that, then you really need a beefy system to be able to do that. Yeah,
because again, we when we started, we also had a dedicated system to handle the live stream and to do the encoding. Mm-hmm. And like I said, we were using XSplit at first. Now we're actually using OBS Streamlabs, which we will get to in a minute. But we started with just streaming to one platform. I think YouTube, if I remember it correctly. But at some point, indeed, we also thought, we can stream to multiple platforms. So we can maybe add Twitch or Facebook, but we soon ran into problems. I think a second stream was still doable. One indeed can be rendered or encoded on the GPU and the other one on the CPU. But if we wanted to add a third platform, then it already became an issue. And we weren't even using a low-end system or anything like that. Again, this really depends, and you need a very beefy system if you want to do it like this. again, if you're just streaming to one platform, which I think most people will do, then even with XSplit, definitely not a not a problem. Should definitely be possible and quite easy again. Then there's also open broadcasting or broadcaster software.
Probably the most famous one in this list.
Exactly, better known as OBS.
Yeah.
So OBS can be a bit daunting if you first start with it. When I first looked at it, the user experience wasn't quite as friendly as XSplit, but in the end, it does offer a hell of a lot of possibilities.
It doesn't have the most modern user interface either, but it's very, in terms of features,
it's very extensive.
Really good. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's really a lot of external plugins and modifications and stuff like that possible.
The possibilities are endless with OBS.
Yeah.
You can do a lot.
Yeah. But OBS can only stream to one platform at the same time. So this was for us a bit of a conundrum or something that kept us using XSplit for a long time because we wanted to stream to multiple platforms. But at the same time, we were also kind of, eyeing OBS because we wanted to include a lot of external sources as well. Like, for example, if we interview somebody on Skype, we want to be able to include them, which really relies on a lot of plugins, which for OBS seems to be a bit more active, the plugin community and the plugin updates.
It's an interesting comment in YouTube chat. Isn't streaming multi-platform in violation with the terms and conditions of Twitch and YouTube? It depends very much on what kind of streamer you are. For example, Twitch. If you're a partner, I believe you need to be exclusive to Twitch. We're not a Twitch partner.
No.
So we can stream to multiple platforms without violating any.
Yeah. One of the big differences in if you're a Twitch partner is also that you can get, for example, subscriptions, which means that people subscribe. They have to pay actual money. You get a part of that money, and Twitch gets a small part as well.
Yeah, I think affiliates can also do that, like the step below partner. But I believe partner can also do a higher bit rate. So I think they can go beyond that 6,000 kilobit per second.
Yeah. So we don't do that because, again, we don't do this stream to for any monetary gain or something. We don't need subscribers. We don't need money. So
we're happy with you guys watching.
For us, but for us, it's also not really a big benefit, I guess, to be a partner because a lot of the benefits of Twitch partner are, so to give some monetary benefits, some possibilities for streamers who do this as a job or as a side gig, maybe. To also make some money for the time they're putting in, which for us again doesn't really apply. But indeed, and I mean I think technically it is possible to use the same content if you're streaming on Twitch to use the same content on YouTube later on. Like you can use footage from your live stream and upload it to YouTube later. But I think indeed the thing that specifically is not allowed is to at the same time broadcast it on both platforms. That's, I think, the thing that's really nailed down there as a hard requirement or basically exclusivity when it comes to Twitch. All right, so so there's the OBS indeed, and again, that offers a hell of a lot of possibilities, but can be a bit more fiddly to get.
It's like
going.
If you're streaming for the first time, it's one of the more complicated ones to find out how it works.
To set up for the first time,
Not only the user interface, but also the endless possibilities can be a little bit overwhelming in the beginning. So, for example, Shadowplay is much easier to use for the first time.
Yes.
But of course, Shadowplay is also much more limited in terms of possibilities than OBS.
Yeah.
So if you're getting more serious into streaming, if you want to be able to do all those fancy things, use name tags, use multiple cameras, etc., etc.
Then XSplit can do that, but OBS is like So I would say XSplit in terms of possibilities it offers and user friendliness is somewhere in between Shadowplay and OBS.
Yeah.
OBS is kind of like advanced.
More like OBS.
Yeah, but OBS is kind of like advanced mode, I guess you could call it like that. And even then with OBS, because it's an open platform, so basically anybody can use it. Everybody has access to the source code. What some people have done is make something like Streamlabs OBS. So Streamlabs was, I don't really know if it was a community or a dedicated company to this, but they made a modded, I guess, like a modified version of OBS, which already features a hell of a lot of plugins and UI changes to make things a little bit easier to do, and a whole lot of things are already kind of configured in a way that it's almost ready to go. So it's a bit easier to set up your live stream for Streamlabs.
So it's based on OBS, but it's a little bit more user friendly. The
Yes.
user interface is I would say looks a bit fresher, maybe. But it doesn't have, for example, all the plugin support that the normal OBS can provide.
Yes.
So it's a bit of a trade-off. Depends, of course, on what you want to do with it.
Yes.
We're actually currently using Streamlabs OBS for our live stream.
And then there's mirrorless action, which I know nothing about. I believe Eric is looking into this specifically for, and maybe you also, Mike. I'm not sure if you're familiar with
I've not been looking into this yet.
Okay. But that's specifically because we're also looking into the possibility to actually stream HDR content on YouTube. And mirrorless action is one of the software, or the software we found, which at the moment could allow this or could make this possible. But we still have to do a lot of testing and looking into how this actually works. Because again, it's like quite early days for this kind of feature for HDR content as well. But that could be a next step for us as well. And I'm not sure if mirrorless action is something that you can add on, for example, on top of Streamlabs OBS, or if this is something that is standalone and you cannot use Streamlabs or OBS at the same time. That I don't know, to be honest. And there's many others. Again, like there's probably a hell of a lot of, for us at least, lesser known alternatives as well as in terms of streaming software. But the general purpose and process is the same. So you've got multiple things. You've got your microphone, your webcam, headphones, of course. Everything goes into your computer basically, and it needs to be then encoded by either software or hardware, and then sent to your platform of choice. In this case, in the overview here, you have the YouTube stream key, which then sends all the data to YouTube Live, the data stream. And this is something that your system has to be able to handle for a live stream to become successful and but also smooth and good quality. So when encoding, I think we already touched on this a little bit, and a lot of people discussing this as well, because I think this has also been something of a debate for a long time. Long time ago, and I mean like pretty much a lot of years ago, the only option you had was CPU encoding. Early days. It was basically you could use the X264, what's it called, protocol or? Yeah,
X264.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Which is an encoding protocol basically that you can use, and then there's multiple stages of it. So you can see on the left side there's X264 fast, and there's very fast.
That one is a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
Because fast, for example, is lower quality than medium.
Yes.
Which sounds kind of confusing, but basically medium is more efficient. So with the same bit rate, medium will look better than fast, for example. But of course, it also needs more processing power.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind there.
So the name indeed is based on how much performance you have left when you use it, I guess. So your system will still be very fast if you use the very fast preset, because it has the least amount of impact on your performance.
Very fast is also a setting, by the way.
Yeah, well, it
fast,
says
very fast, ultra fast.
Exactly. Yeah.
I see some very interesting questions, by the way. Quickly interrupting. WT is asking, can you use a streaming PC for recording as well? Yes, you can. For example, in OBS, Streamlabs, OBS, XSplit, you can also record what you're doing instead of broadcasting it.
Yeah.
And do you need 2 keyboards and mice to control both your PCs, or can you use one set? If you use 2 PCs, you of course need 2 keyboards and 2 mice, or for example use a USB switch. Like there are also, for example, USB hubs with a button on it that kind of works like a KVM switch. So you can use one set, press the button, and you're controlling the other PC.
Yeah. But if you want to control both at the same time, you basically need 2 sets.
Indeed. Then I saw a question on Twitch. Action Bar is asking, how does it work with streaming multiple resolutions? Because, for example, via OBS to Twitch is standard only one resolution. While we're streaming in one resolution to Twitch, we're streaming in 1080p 60.
Yes.
But on Twitch, people who are watching it can choose several resolutions if they, for example, don't have the bandwidth to run it in 1080p 60.
Or it will automatically scale down.
But I believe this is not the case for if you just create a new account and start streaming on Twitch. I don't think you have this possibility right away. I think you need to have a certain number of viewers continuously to get this feature, because Twitch will provide the processing power in order for you to be able to choose those resolutions.
Yeah.
So once your stream grows, I'm sure that Twitch will enable that possibility for your stream. But I believe they don't do that automatically for every starting stream and the smaller streamers.
Yeah, because again, it's also about allocation of resources, I guess.
And they're allocating those resources to the streams with more viewers.
Yeah, which makes sense from their point of view.
Yeah.
All right, so encoding on a GPU versus a CPU. Yeah, you can encode on both of them, or either of them.
You can choose or do it even simultaneously like in XSplit?
Exactly, yeah. However, this can create a huge load on either of those processors depending on the bit rates or resolutions. You know, the higher the resolution or bit rate, the higher the impact. However, modern GPUs have built-in encoders. I think the most well-known, especially for streaming, is NVENC, so the NVIDIA encoder. To offload the CPU and GPU. Now, in the past, I think even from 600 series, NVIDIA GTX 600 series, the NVIDIA cards have had NVENC. And the first version was already quite a nice step, I think, but there was still some impact on GPU performance. It would still take quite a bit of GPU performance away from the game, for example. However, especially starting from Turing, so I think it's 1650
they were
Super.
quite okay in offloading it, but the thing was they were not extremely efficient.
Yeah.
So if you, for example, have that limitation of 6,000 kilobits per second on Twitch, the quality you were getting out of a very old, for example, 600 series NVIDIA GPU, the quality you're getting with the same bit rate is much lower than, for example, the Turing NVENC we have in this RTX 2060 we have right here.
Yeah.
So in terms of efficiency of the encoder, NVIDIA really made huge steps over the years.
Yeah, and yeah, the most recent and also I think the biggest step they made with the Turing encoder. So the one they introduced together with the RTX 20 series, which is featured on the card from the GTX, even the GTX 1650 Super and above. So 1660,
so the regular
1650
1650 has got a different one, but the 1650 Super and 1660 models, and also all RTX models, they all have Turing NVENC.
Yeah, which is a lot more efficient and provides a lot better quality streaming and encoding, basically.
Yeah.
While simultaneously not having a very big impact on your performance. So this really also allows a lot of people to stream on the same PC that they're gaming on, because if you look at the graph at the bottom as well, you can see that in this case it's CPU utilization. X264 is basically CPU based encoding. So that means that you are using or giving some of your CPU performance to do this encoding, while at the same time, if you're playing a game at the same time, that means that, for example, if you use the fast preset in this case, it would basically impact your CPU by or what is it, the FPS by about 40%, 39 I think it says there.
Yeah, it can be quite a big impact. And if you're choosing, for example, for medium, then you will get slightly better quality, but the CPU impact will be even higher. So that will cost you even more gaming performance.
Yeah. And so a lot of people were using the very fast preset, which is kind of a little bit less visual fidelity, but still it's still doable. But then still, even then, you've got a 23% in-game FPS hit, which is still quite significant. If you look at using a NVIDIA encoder, for example, in this case, or the NVENC, yeah, you have, because the graphics card is handling it pretty much, you still have some communication between the graphics card and the CPU, so it will always take a little bit of performance. But 4% versus 23 or 39% is a huge difference. So there you can really see that, yeah, using the NVIDIA encoder, it's much easier to use your, to still have a lot of performance available on your system while you're doing a live stream on it as well. Also, the quality of the NVENC encoder has changed and improved a lot in previous years. So, yeah, right now it's a lot better than it used to be.
Something else to keep in mind, for example, NVENC does not impact your system performance that much because it's a dedicated chip on the graphics card. But it's still useful, for example, to use a dual streaming setup, so dual PC streaming setup, because also if you're running OBS, that will of course also take some of your resources. So if you're running the stream and gaming, and if you're gaming on the same PC, even though you're using NVENC for the encoding, so your gaming performance will not be impacted that much, you will also lose some of your resources because you're running the streaming software in the background. So that's also something to keep in mind if you're in doubt whether to choose a single PC setup for streaming or a dual PC setup.
Yes. All right.
The time is there, Peter.
The time is there, yes.
For our first winner of today's giveaway. So if you haven't participated yet, go to msi.com/2/insider. If you're watching on Twitch or YouTube, the bot will also put a direct link to Gleam in the chat every 5 minutes. If you follow the link, you can perform certain actions. The more actions you perform, the bigger chance you will have to win. And if you're a returning visitor, of course, make sure to claim your loyalty bonus for a slight edge in our giveaway. And our first winner of today
actually won because they claimed the loyalty bonus.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So that's a returning visitor.
Yes, it must be, because else you cannot...
Congratulations, Fadrin. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but congratulations. You won our first $20 Steam wallet code. Yep. Keep an eye out on your mailbox, then we will email you the code with some instructions on how to redeem it in the coming days. And of course, enjoy it. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Yes. CJ Bill is saying OBS with NVENC will use up to 10% in some cases, depending on settings and sources. Yeah, definitely very much depends on the CPU you're using. If you're running, for example, a very high-end Ryzen 9 with maybe 16 cores, then the impact will of course be very limited. If you're doing this on a Ryzen 3 or a Core i3, then of course the impact will be much, much bigger. Yeah. Merrick saying the loyalty bonus is gone since 2 weeks ago. Yeah, we'll look into this. We've seen it in previous streams as well. We have looked into it. We haven't seen anything strange, but we will continue to monitor it because that indeed shouldn't happen. So we will see. I don't know. I'm just wondering if this maybe is also related to certain, was it GDPR? You know, like privacy things that maybe if you don't allow the platform, the Gleam platform, to then it cannot see that you participated. Exactly, to keep your data and monitor this, then indeed it maybe also won't be able to register that you've actually watched multiple times. So yeah, anyway, we'll look into it. Thanks for reporting that. Okay, let's see. Yeah, let's go back to basically the last point that we are going to make. Because in our situation, what we do is we stream to multiple platforms. Again, this for most people probably won't be the case, but just in case you were wondering how do we do that without like having multiple PCs or a massive server-grade PC handling that workload. Because we are streaming to what, 5, 6 platforms maybe even? Oh, for example, on Twitter, we're streaming to multiple Twitter channels. Yeah. So I think in total we have 5 or 6. 5 or 6. Indeed. Yeah, yeah. Which on a regular PC would be, you know, using XSplit or something would be a friggin' nightmare because you need really beastly hardware to do that, and even then it would be probably struggling. So what we do is we use a restream service, and it does pretty much what it says it does. It restreams. So what it will do is you
have to, if you have an account, and the service we use is called Restream, restream.io, and what you can do there is if you create an account, you can link your multiple platforms, so your YouTube account, your Twitch account, your Facebook account, whatever that you're using. You can link that to your Restream account, and then you only have to send one stream. So basically the PC only has to encode one stream, send it to Restream. That's kind of like the picture you see there. And then the Restream platform has, I guess, a whole lot of server capacity or something like that. Because what they will do then is they will re-encode your stream and then send it or mirror it, I'm not sure how they do it, to multiple platforms at the same time. And that's exactly what we are doing and how we achieve this.
So you're streaming to multiple platforms, but your PC is only encoding it once.
Yes.
So that's a big difference, because before we were using something like Restream, we used XSplit, and there we had two possibilities for encoding, so the CPU and the GPU, and we could stream to two platforms. But of course now we have more platforms than two.
Yes.
And then we don't have enough encoding possibilities in our PC.
No.
So that's extremely useful there.
Yeah.
We only encode it once.
Yes, indeed. So, and this platform really allows you then to do that. Again, it's not really for everybody, I guess. Most people will just focus on one platform. But I mean, yeah, streaming to multiple platforms at the same time, of course, has its benefits. You reach a hell of a lot more people potentially, especially in our case, But at the same time, trying to combine, for example, the chats, because then you're streaming to multiple platforms, and on every platform people will be watching it, and there is some form of chat, or people want to contribute to the live stream, or have some remarks or feedback, and we want to see all of them basically. And this was really one of the big challenges also we were facing in a couple of years, because now Restream also offers and has compatibility with most platforms, but as you saw earlier in the stream, sometimes it's still a bit iffy and it can lose connection to one of them. Now, actually, without us doing anything, it has regained connection to YouTube chat, so it's there again. But yeah, this then allows us now to see all the chat messages from all the, regardless of the platform. And that's ideally what you want, because then you can really engage, of course, with your viewers, regardless of the platform.
I see someone in YouTube chat who thinks we're advertising for Restream. Don't worry, we don't get anything for this.
I was going to say, yeah.
We are paying for our subscription even.
Exactly, yeah. This is not sponsored by Restream or anything like that.
We're just explaining how we are doing our stream, basically.
We just wanted to give you full disclosure, full transparency about how we put our setup together, basically, and how we do it. So again, not sponsored by Restream. You won't get a segue into our sponsor, sorry, because we don't have one.
I see someone else saying in chat, wonder where Mike is looking. I'm looking to the screen where I see the chat, so I can see your messages. Yeah. So that's why I'm looking slightly sideways.
Same for me, by the way. If I'm looking this way, that's where there's like a little laptop with the chat screen in there as well. So that's where I can see what you guys are saying. So sometimes I will be looking that way.
I also saw that TD Kid had a very good point. He was saying, if we continue like this, then security will kick them out when the PC is finished 2/3. So let's get started with the building.
Yes, let's do that. I mean, this was the last slide anyway.
Yeah.
So Mike?
Let's first take a look at all the components, I think.
Yeah.
So everyone knows what we're building exactly. By the way, we're not actually sitting next to each other, just so you know. So I'm not touching Peter. He can make himself disappear very easily.
As you can see here, I can behead myself.
Yeah, completely Corona-proof. Yeah. So this is the case we're using today. This is the MPG Secura 100P. So this is the black version with black fence in there. It does have a tempered glass side panel, but no RGB accents and stuff like that. Let me put this aside real quick so we have some space. Then we have a very nice motherboard. Yeah,
detailed cam.
There we go. Let me point this upwards a little bit. There we go. So this is our MAG B460 Tomahawk motherboard. So this is our previous generation. Of course, nowadays we have our 500 series as well. And we're going to combine this with a very nice Core i5 10400 CPU. So this is a 6-core 12-thread part, which is still a very capable CPU, but this chip will not do the encoding in our streaming setup. That will be handled by the GPU in our situation, by NVENC. We're still using an i5 because we do run some things simultaneously. Of course, we're running Streamlabs OBS, but also sometimes we have guests through Skype, for example. So we do need some processing power in order to do some stuff in the background. Yeah. Then we have our graphics card, and this is the GeForce RTX 2060 Ventus OC. So this is basically the most entry-level RTX model out there. The reason why we're using this one and not, for example, a GTX 1650 Super is because this one can also benefit from the new RTX features for streaming. So Peter, we have several things. We have like the background, the noise removal.
It's a broadcaster indeed. So there's a lot of features there that, of course, were introduced with even with the 30 series. They've made some new possibilities available indeed. So there's a lot of things like indeed chroma keying basically, and it can use. But what it needs is that you can use the 30 series, but you don't need it. You need at least a Turing card with tensor cores. So because it will use the tensor cores to do this kind of.
So basically, you need any RTX card.
Exactly, yeah. And then it's things like the background, but also like extra, maybe live effects it can do. I'm not quite sure if it can do it live or if that's like more like a afterwards rendering thing. RTX noise is one of the things it can do. So basically, noise filtering. We're always looking into that because our room, to be fair, is not like, it's not a professional studio. So we actually don't have like sound padding on the walls. We've got some improvised stuff. So we perhaps could really do with some additional noise filtering. So that's one of the reasons we're also going to look into and just experiment with it. But yeah, generally a lot of those things.
WT is asking, and they call this leftovers. These are leftovers for us because currently we're using the current generation, so 11 series for Intel Core and the RTX 30 series for the NVIDIA cards. So these are basically left over in our office. So that's why I decided to use these to build a new streaming PC with. But of course, for example, if you're not planning on using any of the RTX streaming features, you will get exactly the same encoder already with a 1650 Super. But also if you have an older card, an older NVIDIA card, even from the 600 series and everything above, then you can already use NVENC. Of course, the older ones don't have the extremely efficient NVENC that this one has.
That's why we needed this one.
Yeah, that's why we're using this one, and because we want to take benefit of those RTX streaming features, we're using an RTX card. But this is the most basic RTX card that we could find and that exists basically.
WT is really on a roll here as well, because he also mentioned something that we also know to be true. If you're streaming on multiple platforms, one can actually be faster than the other, meaning he is watching our stream on both Twitch and YouTube at the same time. And YouTube has a little bit of more of a delay, or maybe, I don't know, maybe you can call it a buffer. I'm not sure.
I believe Twitch also has like a low latency viewing
and I think
feature.
we selected for Twitch to be indeed, the low latency. Yeah. No, don't add in any kind of buffer or delay. You can do that, by the way, because again, if people are stream sniping, I don't know if you know that term, but trying to know where you are in the game if they're in the same server, for example, just by watching your stream, and they can pretty much cheat that way because they know where you are. So you can add in artificial delay, which is useful during gameplay if you want to avoid that kind of stuff. But yeah, so we've basically set Twitch to the fastest indeed, and then YouTube, I guess, has maybe a little bit more overhead. Not sure, but yeah, there's a little bit of a delay there. So well noted.
WT is saying my leftovers look a lot different than yours, but even for many situations, even if your hardware leftovers are a lot older, they might still be very suitable to build a streaming PC with. Yeah. And again, in many situations, you might still get a better stream out of it than when doing it on your recent gaming PC, but not dedicated.
Even a mid-range PC of 2015, for example, can be perfectly fine for this purpose, or even before that.
Then, let's continue with the rest of our hardware. We're going to cool our 10400 with MSI Core Frozr S CPU cooler. So it's a nice 120mm tower design cooler. It's not the most extreme cooler out there. Of course, there are also massive all-in-one solutions, but for 10400, the CPU is not doing any encoding, rendering, stuff like that. So we're not putting it under extreme workload. So this cooler is very sufficient for well, what it needs to do in the system.
Enough.
Yeah, it's more than enough for this system indeed. Then we have some RAM. So it's a dual channel kit, 2 times 8 gigabytes, DDR4. This is DDR4 3200, but we're using a B460 motherboard with a Core i5 CPU, so they will be limited to 2666 megahertz. But yeah, these are memory sticks that we had laying around. So these are the ones we're using, but we cannot use them in maximum speed, unfortunately. That is one of the features that Intel added to the B series in this generation. So if you're going for a B560 chipset motherboard, then you will be able to overclock your memory, so you will be able to run those higher memory frequencies. On our current platform, B460, that is not possible. So we will be limited to 2666, but for streaming purposes, perfectly fine and perfectly sufficient.
Yeah, indeed. I wonder how much difference memory makes also for us. Again, for us, it only the PC only has to encode one stream to one place. So because I saw Mark GK asking 4 cores are enough. Yeah, I mean in this case we get what was it? You said 6 cores, 12 threads.
Yeah.
Yeah. So exactly. It's basically overkill. But then we still have some room left for all the other shenanigans we run on this PC, like trying to get people in the stream, embed them in the stream with Skype, with interviews, or sometimes we run content directly from this PC because to show you like movies or some other things in between. So we need to have some space, some room to leave performance for that kind of stuff.
We need a decent CPU, but not a flagship model.
No, indeed. Yeah.
Then we have our SSD. So this is Western Digital Black, the SN700, 500 gigabytes. So it's an M.2 SSD. It's PCI Express Gen 3. Of course, that's also the maximum we can do on this platform, so it makes no sense to use a Gen 4 SSD. Still very fast SSD, very capable for what we're doing with it. And we don't need a huge SSD. So this is already slightly overkill, 500 gigabytes.
Yes.
Because basically we're not storing anything, we're live streaming everything. Sometimes we record something, so then we need a bit of storage. Yeah. But most of the time it's just live to the internet and we're not storing anything. And then, last but not least, we have our power supply. This is not really a leftover, but we recently started with power supply, so we don't have any older models yet. So here we're actually using our MPG A650 GF. So that's a 650 watt 80 plus gold power supply. It's kind of overkill for this system, and it's not exactly leftover.
I was going to say, I think even with this system, if you have like an older power supply, if it's decent, and I think even 350, 400 watts should be sufficient for this.
I would say assuming 450 to be safe in this situation.
I was going to say, assuming you're not going to do any overclocking or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just stock settings.
Yeah. So this is slightly overkill. Yes. But this is the lowest model we have in our power supply lineup
First world problems.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're going to use today. So let's get building.
Yeah. In the meantime, I will also look at chat. This name I'm going to try to pronounce correctly.
I'm just going to put everything in front of you.
Cool. Anirudh Bhatt is saying, on how many platforms live chat are you guys looking? So I saw your question on YouTube. But basically all the platforms. So that means we are streaming on YouTube. So I see that chat, Twitch. Those are the 2 most active ones, incidentally, as well. But Facebook is also on there. And I think 2 instances of Twitter, or what used to be Periscope. Maybe it still is. Again, it's kind of like a transition, so it's a bit weird. And especially the Twitter Periscope one is sometimes a bit weird, as in, I'm not 100% sure if it's really a chat, technically, or if it's most like Twitter posts reacting on the announcement or the stream. So yeah, that one we also don't see a hell of a lot of things. Lost Boy is saying Instagram. That's actually one of the platforms we have been looking into, but for Instagram it requires a different resolution or a different aspect ratio. So it doesn't support the 16.
It's like the portrait view instead of landscape.
Exactly. So we can't really send the same signal that we have to Instagram, or if we do, you only see a very small slice in the middle of the screen instead of the whole live stream, the whole image, the whole picture. But yeah, funnily enough, we have actually been looking into that because, again, Instagram is a huge platform. Not really sure about live streaming, but yeah, in general. And it is something we keep looking into, but we haven't really found a way to do this accurately or well yet, other than just, taking a phone and pointing it at a screen with an audio input at the same time, basically, and just basically rebroadcasting or filming the stream and then streaming it to
not ideal
to Instagram that way. So indeed, that's a bit of a lo-fi way of doing it, but there's not really a good solution for this yet. So we are looking into it, but it's interesting.
I see some more questions. Can you run a DRM at 2933 megahertz in that MAG board? Yes, you can with an i7 or an i9 CPU, but with an i3 or an i5, like the i5 we're using right now, you're limited to 2666. That's not the case anymore with B560, but it is the case with B460 that we're using today. Then I see a question, does only B590, well, there is no B590, we have B560 and Z590. If they support Gen 4 SSD, yes, both of them can support PCI Express Gen 4.
Yeah.
Then I see a question, why doesn't MSI build their own SSDs? I'm sure you can answer this, Peter.
We don't. But if you followed the news at the beginning of this year, CES, the digital presentation, then you would know that we will be introducing MSI SSDs in the near future, indeed. But because of the whole, at the moment, the global shortage of components and stuff like that, it's difficult to say exactly when they will be there. Just, they're in the planning, and if there were no shortage at the moment, they would probably already be available. But right now, we kind of have to wait and see when we can actually produce the damn things and get some stock. But yeah, so it's a weird situation right now. But yeah, they're actually coming up indeed. So later this year, hopefully, if everything does go well and according to plan, you should see MSI SSDs appearing on the market.
So let's get going.
Yes.
Can you switch to the close-up cam? Because first we're basically going to prepare the motherboard. Now that it's not in the case yet, everything's easily accessible. So we start off with everything we can put directly on the motherboard. So for example, your CPU, your SSD, your memory, your CPU cooler. It's easiest to do that already right now before you put it into the case. Of course, that's not possible if you're using an all-in-one liquid cooler. Because then you need to put your radiator in your case. But today we're just using a tower-style air cooler, so we can do it. So let's start off with the CPU. I'm going to do it upside down, so you can see it properly. CPU goes in a certain way. Make sure it is the correct way. You can see it on the cutouts on the side.
And also there's a little golden arrow in one of the corners.
Yeah, exactly. So you just drop it in, and then you take the cap off.
Or if you don't, once you put the little
once
bracket down, it will pop off.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Once you close it, it will pop off. Just push this down and install the CPU. As easy as that. Then I will also directly install the SSD, because now it's still easily accessible. I'm using an SSD without a heatsink today, the Western Digital Black. It's also available with the heatsink, but I'm going to use the heatsink on the motherboard, so the M.2 Shield Frozr that we have on this model. So I just remove it, then install the SSD, and then I put the heatsink back on there. Let me see. There we go.
By the way, if you guys want to know or want to get into PC building and you're not that familiar with it, we actually have, and I don't know, Mike, is this the right time to highlight it?
Yeah, sure.
We actually have a platform online for a while that kind of takes you through the process step by step, and it's called Yes We Build.
Maybe you can show it. I will put on the mount for the CPU cooler.
On the current website, it might be a bit difficult to find. It used to be one of the main campaigns running, but at the moment it's being pushed to the back a bit by some of the newer content. But as you can see, and if you Google MSI Yes We Build, that was the name of the campaign, it's actually quite useful. Because again, it just takes you through, it's like a building guide for beginners. And it just takes you through the process step by step. So as you can see here, a complete how-to PC building guide for beginners. Learn to build. It will also explain to you why should you build your own, or why would you even consider it. Again, there's a lot of advantages from probably, saving a bit of money as well. You just have to pay the part costs instead of, also obviously the cost for somebody having to put the PC together for you, which is like an hour wage or something like that. And building it yourself is quite cool indeed. I mean, there's a sense of accomplishment and pride when you do and build it yourself and it works. But also it helps you to, for the future, for example, if at some point you want to upgrade your PC, you learn a lot in the process and you probably will be more comfortable handling any kind of upgrades yourself in the future, which is also quite useful. You don't have to rely on other people or companies for that. Then it tells you, of course, what you need, and it takes you through the components basically. So, of course, you need CPU cooler, motherboard, memory, graphics card, storage, power supply, a case, obviously, and in the end, peripherals when everything is working to make sure you can install everything. And of course, do something on it. There's a free ebook also available here, so you can download that. Again, it's like a little graphic novel to take you through the process. And here, basically, you have like videos on also that take you through steps individually. So yeah, this is really something I wanted to highlight because again, it's underrated in my experience. A lot of people, if you're into this kind of thing, then you probably consider this to be quite basic knowledge and like everybody knows how to do this by now, blah blah blah. I mean, for us it's very easy to kind of think that way because we are in that scene. Everybody that we know pretty much does things like this, but every now and again, of course, you get people asking questions that you really think, whoa, all right, yeah, thought this was quite easy, but yeah. And then when you think back to my younger days as well, when I didn't know
everyone
that much
needs to
PCs.
start somewhere.
Yeah, and it can be quite daunting. So this can really help you to. Looks like Mike broke something off. I don't know.
I did?
I don't know. Anirudh is saying that.
Okay, I don't think so. I just installed the backplate and maybe we can show it up close.
Yes.
So I put the backplate on the back of the motherboard and I put the bracket in front. So this is where we install the CPU cooler on. For as far as I know, I didn't break anything yet, but I cannot guarantee that.
We will see when if it turns on.
Yeah.
In the end. Yeah, but again, it's a beginner's guide, and that's why also for a lot of people, if you are that guy like me, sometimes that people go to ask, hey, you know a lot about a computer, so can you help me with X or Y or whatever? You can also refer them to this site and say, look, how cool would it be if you could do it yourself, and you can learn about it, or you can take them through the process. So you basically help them to do it once. And then after that, they can pretty much do it themselves. So you can teach them. Anyway, just wanted to share that. It's very useful. And even if you're just, if you are experienced, but you haven't done it in a while and you just want to kind of go through the process again to see if anything changed, this platform can help you with that.
Okay, so the backplate and the bracket are installed. Now we're going to put some thermal paste on there. So let me grab my phone so I can show you up close what we're doing.
Yes, I need to connect it. Again, guys, we're using...
Now you should be able to see what I'm filming here.
Focus! Yes! No, yes, no, yes,
yes,
no.
No,
what the
yes,
hell?
no.
It's...
Hello? Interesting.
It doesn't really know what to focus on. Is this autofocus?
Yeah, it should be.
Ooh. Maybe take it off autofocus then.
Yeah. Now you can focus it, I think.
Oh, wait, can I?
Yeah, you got the button, AF.
Focused AF, no? I don't think I can.
No?
It's not doing anything. I think it's better if you do it and then just tap the screen.
It should be at autofocus. Let me check if this works. Is it focusing?
No.
Yeah, this is something new we're testing out.
Yeah.
It's called Droid Cam. And
Here you
then
can see Mike struggling in real time.
Yeah, indeed. This is the first time I'm using it actually.
Yeah, I've used it in the past as well. It's really cool when it works well, but yeah, we have run into some stability issues or.
Hello, focus. It
Oh,
seems
yes.
to be auto-focusing now.
Okay, fair
I
enough.
think.
Maybe it just doesn't like the socket.
As you can see, it says Intel Confidential. This is an engineering sample, so it's not one you will find in the source, but it's just Core i5 10400.
Yeah.
I think it is. It has a problem with my fingerprints on the bracket. But now I'm going to put some thermal paste on there. I need to put this down for a second, otherwise I cannot open it.
Mike, maybe wait. Somebody got my attention. Tudor was saying that Hulk versus Spawn had a good question, and his question was he has an MPG X570. Well, there should be something after that still, but that's okay. And is asking, is there a guide to install M.2 Frozr heatsink? But I think those are generally. It's the same process, so
yeah, it's quite straightforward.
Can you show that, or will you get? Yeah, you still have to do the M.2.
No,
right?
I already installed it.
Oh,
It's basically,
okay.
but it depends a bit on the motherboard because some motherboards have the bigger version where it goes integrated into the chipset heatsink.
Yes.
Here it's just very basic. Let me show it up close. Here it's just basically screwing those two off. You install the SSD and you screw it back on. That's basically it.
And I mean, there's a thermal pad on the
Yes.
M.2 Shield Frozr.
If you're using a new motherboard, make sure to take off the protective layer.
Yes.
This motherboard is already being used, so we don't have the protective layer anymore.
Yeah.
But make sure to do that if you're using it for the first time.
Exactly. There's a little protective film on it.
So let me see. I think you should be able to see. I put some thermal paste in the middle. And it really has autofocusing issues.
Yeah. You use the grain of salt, or sorry, grain of rice method, I guess. You don't spread it out on the CPU die yet.
And I will just, I'm not going to spread it myself. I will mount a cooler on it and the cooler will spread the thermal paste for me.
Merrick is asking, how do you link your phone cam to your streaming PC? This was actually one of the things we were looking into, because there are webcams and there are like high quality cameras. At the moment, the camera we are using, which is filming Mike, is a different one than the one that's filming me. The one that's capturing Mike or recording him is actually a DSLR camera, so basically a photo camera, which can also do quite well video recording and basically streaming through an HDMI connection. The one that's recording me is an actual webcam, which is called the Logitech Brio. It can also do up to 4K, but you can already see that there is a huge difference in quality when it comes to these things. And we were thinking, webcams, sure, there are some pretty decent ones, but they're quite fiddly in our experience. So either a high quality DSLR will give a really good and smooth result, as you can see the one filming Michiel. Or, for example, phone cameras these days are really frigging good and can do a lot of things. And also a phone is something that's not, attached by cable, so you get a lot of freedom. So we were also thinking, how can you actually do that? And we had read and seen some instances that people were actually doing that and using it. And you can actually, well, in our experience now, quite easily do it by installing in our case, what we are using is an application on your phone called DroidCam. And then you also have to download and install the DroidCam application on your PC. And I think your phone application will basically, they have to be on the same network. That's one of the things I should say. Yep. So they can actually find each other on the network. And I think your phone will then actually create a server, like an HTTPS server, because it will give you like a little address, like 192.168. Blah, 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 and a port. And your PC software can then connect to that. So you put that into your PC program for DroidCam, and it will connect to your phone through that. And in the process, it will set up like a video feed, basically. And it can also capture audio, by the way. We're not doing that, obviously. But yeah, and it just, to quote Jensen, it just works. Unless it doesn't. And in some case, we've also run into some issues where out of the blue, it just stopped working. But yeah, for now it works.
So there we go. We installed CPU cooler on the motherboard with the bracket, of course, and I also connected the power cable for the CPU cooler right there on the header. Always mount it in this direction because the outtake fan of the case will be right here when you put it in the case, so it drags the air through. Also put the fan back on the cooler. You need to take it off in order to mount it on there, but then you just put it back on with these metal clips. And now we can install the RAM in there. So let me get
ram it in there, Mike.
Make sure to use the right slots. So not the one closest to the CPU. We're using 2 DIMMs, so dual channel. So we're taking the 2nd and the 4th slot.
Can you show? I think it shows on the motherboard, right? There's like some
yes.
print. It might be covered by the CPU cooler now.
I think I can reach it. Let me see.
With the Droid Cam.
Right
yes.
there, next to the memory DIMM slots.
So it shows you which ones need to be done first.
So don't use, if you're using 2, of course if you use 4, you just fill all of them.
Yes.
If you're using only 2, don't use DIMM 1 and 3, but use DIMM 2 and 4. Yeah. That has to do with the memory layout on the motherboard, so you get a better signal to your modules.
Yes.
And that's why you have to use those first. So
that's also why on motherboards that support dual channel memory, it's always better to use 2 DIMM, two RAM memory DIMMs basically, instead of one single big capacity one. So
it's
for
better
example,
to use
if you
2
want
times
32,
8 than 1 times 16.
Yeah,
for example.
exactly. Yeah, because it's I don't know. I guess you can compare it kind of like RAID, in a way.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, it can, if you only have one device in there or one RAM stick, it can only utilize one of the slots bandwidth. Whereas if you have 2, it can actually divide the load over 2 slots and 2 connections, 2 bandwidths. So
yeah. GG While Playtech is saying, what's the memory topology of the motherboard? This is daisy chaining. We're using that on basically all of them nowadays, so no more T-topology on this generation. And that has got the benefit that especially with 2 DIMMs that most people are using, you will get much higher frequencies with daisy chaining than with T-topology.
Also, GG Well Played Tech was saying, is this a new version of the MSI Frozr cooler, or is it still the old one with 4 heat pipes? I think it's still
this
the
is
old
still
one
the
with
old
4.
one with 4 heat pipes.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Yeah, it has 4.
All right.
Just counting.
Yep.
Now we'll install the memory. So we're using the Corsair Vengeance LED. So these are somewhat older modules, but perfectly fine for what we're doing here today.
LED for extra performance.
Yeah, no RGB, but they do have LEDs.
Yes.
And they're still very decent. These are 3200 megahertz, but of course, because of the platform, they will run at 2666. Make sure to install them in the right way. You have a cutout and it's not in the middle. So there is only one way that they will properly fit into the memory slot.
Yes.
2 clicks on either side. There we go. So now we have the CPU cooler, the memory, and the SSD installed. So now we can continue preparing our case.
WT was asking, why are the RAM slots always so close to the fans? Why not make more room for it? Mike?
The shorter the memory traces are on the PCB, the clearer the signal is you can get. If you move them further away, so for example to create more clearance, the distance of your traces will be longer and the memory signal will be weaker.
So further away from the CPU.
Further away from the CPU, because the memory traces go from the CPU to your memory. So if you want to get the very high RAM frequencies, especially interesting for overclocking, or nowadays also by default some RAM sticks are going really high, then you want to have them as close as possible.
Yeah.
And for example, this motherboard, this CPU offers 2 memory channels. On high-end desktop platform you can even have 4, but this one offers 2, and this one has 4 DIMMs. So you have 2 DIMMs per channel, so 2 memory slots for each memory channel. Some motherboards, for example Mini ITX, but also our Unify X models, have only 2 DIMMs. So then you have 1 DIMM per channel, and that will give you even better overclocking capabilities, because you will get an even clearer signal then.
Yeah. Action Brother, that's exactly why. Yeah, is that why they sometimes put RAM sticks on both sides? If you look at, for example, X399 or whatever, you know, those really high-end, production like prosumer boards that are really meant for people who render a video, for example. They need a whole lot of memory and fast speed as well to do that in an efficient way. Putting RAM slots on either side of the CPU socket allows you then to indeed provide more RAM sockets so that they can do, like, I don't know, up to, I don't know if 256 gigs is already a thing, but at least 128. Yeah, there you go. Or a Threadripper, you know, those platforms that are really meant for you know, production as well, production work. Yeah, those platforms really benefit, and then that means even the one, oh no, sorry, I thought it was the one behind you as well, but that's the actual motherboard you have. Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much the only way to do it, and that's also the only space, or the only place where there's still space to actually put the RAM slots, where they're not like at the bottom of the board and far away from the CPU, which introduces latency issues perhaps, or indeed makes the signal strength a lot weaker.
TD Kid is asking, if this is the case with the RAM, then why not have the RAM on top of your CPU? That has been done sometimes as well by some vendors. But usually it's compatibility issues, because if you have it on top of your CPU, then you have a certain space you need for your socket, which you will push down, and then you're obstructing your PCI Express slots and stuff like that, and your M.2 slots. So you will basically shuffle around the whole design of a motherboard, and most cases are based on standard design, which is the memory slots next to the CPU. Yeah. Now we're going to prepare the Secura 100P. This has got a very convenient mechanism for the side panels. You just take the top off, has 2 thumb screws that I already unscrewed, and then you can just lift the side, take it off. And then we have the other side with the tempered glass side panel. Just lift it off.
Really easy.
Really easy. There we go. Yeah, as you can see, completely empty right now. So we're going to fill it up, and we're going to start with installing the power supply, because now we can still access everything easily. Case is still very light because it's empty, so easy to pick up. So let me see if I can move it like this. I hope you can properly see it now with the close-up cam.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. So we're using the MPG A650GF 650 watt power supply, fully modular, so no cables right here. But I already got the cables here that I need for today's build. It comes with way more cables than this, but the benefit of a fully modular power supply is that if you don't need the cables, you don't have to install them, so you don't get a mess in your case. So I only have 3 cables here today. Let me see. Well, I got 2 here, and I got the third one here. So this is your regular 24 pin for your motherboard. Then we have a single 8-pin power connector for the CPU.
I think it's labeled on the connector as well, right?
Yep. Let me.
Because that's important. There are also 8-pin connectors for PCIe for your graphics card, for example. Don't get those mixed up with the CPU one.
Here you, for example, see the PCIe one.
Yes.
That one we will also use for the graphics card, of course. Yes. And those are basically all the cables we need today. We're not adding any SATA devices. Some motherboards have multiple 8-pin power headers for more power-hungry CPUs, for example. We're only using a Core i5, which is perfectly fine with a single 8-pin. We're not overclocking anything, so no need for more than a single 8-pin connector. So let's first install everything into the power supply, because now we can easily reach it. If you put the power supply in first, it becomes a little bit harder to reach. Always just follow the labels on the back of the power supply. So very straightforward. So this is the 24 pin, and that one on the power supply end has got 2 cables that you need to put in there.
Kalel Rodriguez, do you think I can change cases? I want to change my MSI Trident 3 case into a NZXT H510 Elite. That's probably a bit challenging. I mean, the Trident 3 is like a small, well, relatively small form factor system.
It will fit for sure. You have plenty of space.
It will fit, but the components inside...
Yeah, I think it has a special motherboard with an angled PCI Express connector.
Yes.
So you might be able to do something with the PCI Express riser to make it fit, but I wouldn't recommend changing the case for that system.
No.
So I connected the 24-pin and the 8-pin power connector for the CPU. Then we have our 6 plus 2-pin power connector for the graphics card. And this is, for this system, it's not that important because it only uses a single 8-pin power connector for the GPU. If you use multiple, because this is a multi-rail power supply, then make sure to use the different rails. And you can see that on the back here, you see VGA 1 and VGA 2. If you want to benefit from the multi-rail design, make sure that one connector is then on VGA 1 and the other is on VGA 2. If you're plugging both in on VGA 1, for example, you will put the full load of that GPU on just a single rail in the power supply.
But when is this actually required? When is this a thing that it becomes relevant?
High-end cards, very high-end cards. If you're doing overclocking, stuff like that. Now we only have a single 8-pin power connector, so you will always run this off a single rail. But for an RTX 2060, there's no issue at all. But if you're going, for example, for an overclocked 3090, then make sure to spread the load over multiple
I think
rails.
you might need 2 power supplies for that even.
No, you can do it on a single one.
No, but like you need a very high-end power supply with a high capacity, but also...
but still spread it over multiple rails.
Yeah, and I think you need... Well, I think you're going to end up doing that anyway, because a 3090, I think, requires 3 8-pins. So I don't think you can even do that on a single rail.
Yes, you can, because this one has got 2 connectors on one side,
correct.
and you got 2 on a single rail here.
Yeah.
So you can get 4 connectors out of a single rail.
Yeah, true. Don't do that.
Legacy CA says single rail PSUs are the best. That very much depends on what you want to do. In some situations, single rail will benefit you. In other situations, multi-rail will benefit you. For overclocking, yes, I would agree with your statement. For a more redundant system, so if stability is your goal, then I would definitely prefer multi-rail design. But still, you got very good multi-rail designs and very good single rail designs, and also the other way around. There are also very poor multi-rail ones and very poor single rail ones. So yeah, it's not specifically that a single rail is better than a multi-rail or the other way around. It's more about the implementation.
Yeah. Khalid Vinik is asking, will there be a build on AMD or not in the future? We actually had a build
very recently.
3 weeks back or something. I think I did a build. And we let you guys choose, basically. We had Intel Z590 with an 11900K i9 and an AMD, what was it, X570 motherboard with 5950X Ryzen 9. You guys chose the AMD, so we actually made the PC with Ryzen 9. And then for graphics cards, we had you guys choose between a 3080 and an RX 6800 XT, I believe. And you guys chose the 3080. So yeah, that's what we put together back then. So yes, we do also have builds with AMD. What are the main components that are compromised in laptops to keep them lightweight? I think the best answer I can say is cooling. The cooling capacity, because if you want to keep them lightweight, you know, one of the things that weighs the most is just the sheer amount of metal you need to cool the card. If you look at a graphics card, for example, especially a 3090 or a 3080, it's big and it's heavy. But why is it that? Because I think about 70% or more of the weight is just the heatsink and the heat pipes. So, you know, because it's copper, it's aluminum, and that weighs a whole lot. So simply put, in a laptop, you are pretty much limited with what you put in there by how much you can cool it. Because if you have a laptop that runs, you know, 100 degrees, that's not acceptable. So that's simply not possible.
David is saying hydrate. Yes, I make sure to hydrate. Quick heads up. You might be wondering why the sticker is upside down. That's because the fan is on the bottom side of the power supply, so the top side here. And there is a power supply shroud over this. And I don't want to choke the power supply, so there are venting holes in the bottom of the case where you also see this dust filter, so it can breathe through the bottom of the case. And if we turn it around, we can see we have a very nice window in the power supply shroud, and you see that the other sticker is the right way around. So that's why it is mounted in like that. So we installed the power supply. Now let's install the motherboard into the case. So quickly flipping this around. So here's another dust filter on top, so you can easily, it's magnetic, so you can easily take it off.
Yeah.
There we go. Just making a little bit of space with all the power cables. And then I can install the motherboard into the case. So I'm a little bit lucky because this case has already been used before, which means that some cables are already in the correct positions. At least I think most are for this motherboard.
Right, so while Mike does that, I will draw another winner because we shouldn't forget about making people happy and giving away some of those nice juicy game codes. We've been giving away game codes for so long, right? This is the first stream in a long time where we actually have...
Essentially, a Steam wallet code is kind of a game code still.
Yeah, true. So anyway, guys, you can still participate. We've still got some wallet codes to give away. You go to msi.com/2/insider or click on the gleam.io link being shared in the chat for YouTube and Twitch by our bot every 5 minutes. The more actions you perform, the better your chance of winning. They basically just add points. And if you are a regular viewer and you regularly participate in our giveaway, also don't forget to utilize your loyalty bonus, which adds up every time you participate in our giveaway. And our next winner's name is Drogo RD. Congratulations, you win a $20 Steam wallet code. We will send that out to you as soon as possible after the stream, of course, so keep an eye on your mailbox. And yeah, you can still participate and win, so don't miss out on a potentially nice prize of $20 Steam, which again, you know, being a Steam wallet code, you can pretty much spend it on anything in the Steam wallet or in the Steam store. All right.
By the way, you might have noticed that I directly put the motherboard into the case. That's because this one actually has a pre-installed I/O shield. If you don't have that, make sure to put in the I/O shield in the case before you install your motherboard.
Yes.
Otherwise, you will have a huge hole in the back of your case.
Can you show the inside of what you're doing now as well?
Yes,
Because we don't have a top cam, so...
Are you connected?
Nope. Let me connect again. Wait. Oh, it's not allowing me.
Wait, let me wake up my phone. Okay, try again. We're back.
Connection failed. See, this is what I mean, guys. Sometimes it doesn't quite work. Oh, yes,
there we are.
And it's back.
So I'm currently screwing in the motherboard into the case. As you can see, some of the cables are already pre-routed because it has been used before. So I've got my fan hairs here, 3 of them. I've got one there. I haven't routed my cables yet for the power supply. I will do that in a minute when the motherboard is installed. So I will route them the right way so I can easily plug them into the motherboard. So now we'll continue screwing the motherboard. So I need to put this down for a second. It's quite complicated to screw in a motherboard and hold the camera at the same time.
Yeah, we still need something like a phone holder or something so we can actually use this Droid Cam feature and a phone cam basically at the same time as actually doing, building it, where you need both hands. I ran into this a couple of weeks ago as well when we first used Droid Cam, so...
Yeah, it's quite a challenge.
Yes.
So this is a full ATX motherboard, so I need 9 screws Of course, if you're building in different form factors, you might need less.
Oh,
Mini IGX only 4.
Tutor is drawing my attention again to a Hulk versus Spawn, who says he has a MPG X570 Gaming Plus, but for some reason the M.2 standoff is missing. What can he do? Are you sure it's missing? I think sometimes there
Sometimes you have to move it for different sizes of SSDs.
Yeah, or it might be that it's separately in the box in a little bit piece of plastic, at least the really tiny screw that you can attach on the standoff, but the standoff itself, I'm not sure. Sometimes there will be one in the box. As I remember, I've encountered one sometime.
I see in chat, finally Mike broke something. What did I break? I haven't noticed
Oh,
yet.
I think this was about the droid cam not working, by the way.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, okay.
That's the only thing I can think
I broke the connection.
Yes.
That's true. So now I got all screws installed, so let me quickly wake this one up again.
But yeah, Hulk versus Spawn, if you really don't have one of those standoffs, and again, I don't know, yeah, they could be in a different position on the board, but yeah, it should be on there. And I don't know if you bought the board. I'm assuming it will be a new board. You didn't buy it second-handed. But yeah, it should be on there. And if you didn't, if it wasn't included, indeed, please contact your reseller where you bought it and let them know. Because again, you know, these things, yeah, it's not like they're a huge cost or something, so shouldn't be a big deal to get one. But yeah, you do need it. Well, actually, you don't need it, but it is recommended. Because you need to be able to screw the M.2 down securely into the socket, into the M.2 socket to actually make sure it works.
So now I got my motherboard installed, and now I will put the power cables into the right areas. You can easily route them through the back of your case, so that's quite easy. And I'm not going to do proper cable management with tie wraps and stuff today. We're lucky that there is no tempered glass on this side, so I can just close it and no one sees it. But usually, if you want to properly build your PC and if you have more time than we do in this live stream, you can, of course, properly use cable ties to properly manage the cables in the back of your case as well.
Yeah.
But for now, the quick and dirty way.
Troy, he says you couldn't find the 3080 Gaming X Trio. I think you and the rest of the world, pretty much. And he had to go with a different brand, and he apologized for that. I mean, you are forgiven, of course. It's weird times, and, but I'm glad you actually preferred our card. So that for me is already a big compliment. Thank you for that. I just hope that whatever card you were able to get your hands on, that it runs as intended and it gives you the performance that you need. That's what it's all about. That's what you do it for.
Just quickly connecting.
Yeah, actually,
headers.
Merrick, that's a good, you know, about the camera and not being able to hold it while doing things simultaneously. We were joking internally as well. Like we need like a miner's helmet, you know,
Yeah.
with a GoPro on top of it, or like an extreme sports guy, you know, with a GoPro, and then do it like that. But honestly, we would feel friggin' ridiculous while doing that, so that's a no-go. It would look funny as hell, though.
I'm quickly connecting all the USB headers, the audio header.
Anirudh is saying, let's hope MSI builds a laptop someday with upgradable GPU design system. I think we may have had that in the past. I think they were called MX modules, right?
The graphics card.
Yeah.
MXM.
Oh, MXM, that was it, yeah. So those were indeed intended as being, you know, laptops, and you would be able to upgrade the graphics card design. But I'm not really sure if that's even a thing anymore. Because in the end, I think very little people actually did it. Whenever
the MXM cards were also very hard to obtain and thus very expensive.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was a little bit of an issue.
So it's like, you know, practically it's not that useful. You know, the idea is really good and really cool, but you know, again, you need scale for it to work and to be accessible as well. So if only very few people do it, that means that, you know, not many of those modules are being fabricated, made, or sold, or even available in the market. So it's going to be difficult, and yeah, if the scale is quite small, so there's not that many pieces being made, that means that individually, indeed, each piece is more expensive to make, and all the subsequent steps as well. because anything you can do in bulk, in a huge quantity, that has advantages. So in the end, per piece, you have, for example, fewer handling costs, or you get a discount for, along the way for when making these things or ordering the materials for it. So yeah, it didn't really take off that much, I think. And I'm not sure the last time I even saw it, so I'm not sure. It may be that there are still systems that do it, but I haven't seen it in a long time.
No, the MXM modules, as you already mentioned, the idea was nice,
yes.
But because they were so hard to get, they became so expensive that usually buying a new notebook was the more interesting option, basically.
Yeah.
And also, right now it's more complicated because notebooks are getting thinner and thinner, so a separate PCB is not really an option anymore.
Yeah, indeed, it would add to the thickness of the notebook, because you also need to keep into account then that people need to be able to access this module in a relatively easy way, at least a way that isn't likely to cause RMA or break anything. And in general, that's also something that I think a lot of manufacturers kind of try to discourage, especially with laptops where everything is crammed very close. So if you open it up, you are more likely to accidentally damage something, or pull out if you pull out a panel that perhaps there's like a little connector still on the motherboard and you accidentally damage it. It's happened to me in the past when I tried to repaste a laptop's GPU and CPU, that I accidentally also pulled out one of the audio connectors, which in the end made the audio really crappy because the main speaker couldn't be used anymore. So yeah, it's not an ideal situation, but the idea is still nice. It's just the practicality of it, it's kind of defeats the idea and the purpose.
Someone has been roughly handling this USB header in the past. I already did a quick fix on it before, but I cannot get that header in properly.
Ooh.
I'm not going to take the full motherboard out again. Will take too much time for this live stream. I did connect the front USB Type-C header, but I will fix this later on. So always be gentle with those internal type.
Yeah, because these are really small pins,
yeah,
basically sticking out. So
let me quickly point at the one I mean. Because you have the Type-C header, and this is a huge upgrade because this is very firm.
Yeah.
The other one, however,
maybe you can
I can show you the cable.
Maybe you can use your phone for this, because then you can get in closer.
There we go. Yeah, it's a little bit hard to get around the corner. My camera is on the wrong side of my phone. I need to turn it. Does that work?
Yes.
So you got those tiny little pins in there, and someone has been brutally abusing those in the previous user at least.
Yeah. Normally, if you just install your motherboard once, you're unlikely to damage it. But because the hardware that we have probably has been used multiple times, because we build something, test something, take it apart again, and so it's multiple times of doing that. And then, indeed, if you're not careful, you can, again, these are really tiny pins, and they are quite vulnerable if you,
Yeah, they're quite fixable with the screwdriver, but
yes,
not when the motherboard is inside the case.
No, it's difficult to reach.
Yeah. I'm now going to install the power button and the reset button and the power LED, etc. So let me show you up close. That one you will find with that header. It's called JFP1.
Oh, I had fun with that last time around when I did a build.
Why?
Because I was looking for, and I thought most motherboards, like that one has actually a little diagram on top of, above.
Huh? The diagram?
Yes. Under
right there.
JRTD. Yeah, exactly.
It's also in your manual, by the way.
I know, yeah, but I didn't have the manual when I was doing the build, and so I was actually trying to make a point saying, well, most motherboards these days have this print, at least what I saw. But I was wrong, because the motherboard I had actually didn't have the print.
Yeah, not all of them have them.
And I didn't know off the top of my head where I had to put them. And on top of that, the case I was using, the bigger Secura, the 500,
yep.
I thought I was missing some connectors. because I only had, let me get this straight, the power and what did I have? Like the power button, the power switch, and another one.
Reset switch?
No.
No, you didn't have a reset one?
No,
you might
that's
have
the
had
thing.
the LEDs?
I was missing. No, I think power LED and power switch.
Okay. Yeah,
And I
that's
was
possible.
missing indeed, at least to my mind, because I thought these were always in there. HDD LED, which basically shows you, the little blinking light when your PC is doing something to show you hard disk or storage activity. And a reset switch indeed, which is like your reboot switch on the PC as well. And during the stream, I was saying like, oh, they must have gotten entangled in the cables somewhere, and I couldn't find them. But after the stream, I actually discovered that while looking at the front of that case, I was like, wait a minute, there was a little button on there at the front, but that was an LED control button. There was actually no reset switch on that case. So that explains why it didn't have a reset switch connector. And also there was no LED for storage activity. So obviously also no connector for it. So that explains why I couldn't find them. But yeah, that was a bit like, I was completely taken aback, like, what do I do? I'm missing some.
Did you already answer Forza's question? Peter and Mike, which one would you choose upgrading to i9-9900 from an i5 8600K or buying a Ryzen 5 5600X? It very much depends on what you want to do with it.
Or what's available and at what price.
Yeah, both are available nowadays.
Well, but depending on your region.
Yeah. But it was a little bit of a struggle getting the new 5000 series AMD CPUs in the beginning, but it's getting better with availability. So you should be able to buy both of them nowadays, but the i9 of course has got more cores, so if you're going to do multi-core workload, then that one might be more interesting.
You might have a benefit indeed, but if you're going for IPC, so basically per core performance, then
for
I think the
like
Ryzen
pure
5
gaming usage, then the 5600X will be faster.
Simply because it's just newer. Because i9-9900 is 9th generation. That puts it at what, 3 years ago, 2.5?
Yeah, approximately. I think 2.5.
Something like that. Whereas the Ryzen 5 is like 6 months-ish old, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely more recent.
And so what you will see is that if you're, for example, for gaming, probably indeed the Ryzen 5 will give you a better experience. And I mean, like, I've come from a much more extreme upgrade. I had a 4th generation i5, and I also went to a Ryzen 5, so that exact one, because again, I don't do any video editing or production or anything like that at home. I just want to chill and play games if I use it. And for that, the Ryzen 5 was the best choice for me.
If you're wondering why your graphics card doesn't fit in your case on this side, it's probably because you forgot to take these out. So make sure to remove them.
Yes.
In most situations, you need to remove 2 of them. Also, depending on your motherboard, it's not always the top one. So most people automatically remove the top 2 brackets, but this one actually has number 2 and number 3, as you might be able to see right here. So.
And to be honest, you can even do this when your motherboard is in the PC. So don't worry if you don't get it right from the start.
I just removed them before I installed the graphics card.
Exactly.
I just left them in during the installation of the motherboard.
Yes. Yeah.
No worries there.
So they're quite easily accessible in most cases. I mean, maybe not all of them, but most cases it's quite easy to either take them out or even put them back in again and put a thumb screw to keep them in place.
And also, if you're not getting any output from your graphics card, check if you connected the power supply to it, because you do need, on most graphics cards, not all of them, but on most, you do need several dedicated power connectors on your graphics card. On some only one, on some multiple. Only if you have a real low power card, so up to 75 watts, then it can be powered through the PCI Express slot. Right now we're using RTX 2060, and as you can see, it has a single 8-pin power connector.
Yes. Oh, here we go.
There.
Yes. Sorry,
which
I was
was
looking
just
at the
connected
chat.
as well.
I was looking at the
No
chat because
worries,
I
no
see a
worries.
couple of questions I would like to address. One, Marcelo Gabriel is asking, MSI, can I ask something? Do you have plans to make laptops with double GPUs? In the past, we actually did that. That was the Titan series, GT. I think the model started with. They were like the ridiculously powerful, big. Some of them had like a full mechanical keyboard inside. But those laptops were really expensive, really high end, and really chunky as well. I'm not sure. I mean, at the moment, I think the GT are not a part of our lineup anymore. But I don't know. Maybe they'll make a return someday. I know some of them. I think it was with the 900 series. They had like a dual 980, or I think dual 980 was one of the ones I saw, which at that point just blew my mind because that was more powerful than most PCs that I knew. Most desktop PCs, I mean. 10A is asking, yesterday I got an MSI GL65 Leopard and it's heating crazy, 90 to 99 degrees Celsius during gaming. Is that okay? That is quite high. I don't know that much about individual laptop models, but yeah, if you have that, and I don't know, is it a completely new product or is it secondhand or something? You might want to check to make sure it's able to get enough fresh air from the bottom. So don't put it on like a cushion or a blanket or something that could block the airflow from below. Usually the air intakes are on the bottom of the laptop. What can help a lot is just using a laptop stand. So basically it's just like a little thing that puts it at an angle and then the laptop rests on the part that's actually diagonal or something. So there's a little bit of space underneath the laptop and where it can access fresh air, which again will do a lot for the cooling. Or if it's a second-hand laptop, for example, what you could do is check, open the laptop up if you're comfortable doing that, and checking if it's not like completely filled up with dust or cat hairs or something like that, because if somebody uses it in a dusty environment or with pets, that can also happen. And if it gets clogged up, yeah, that will definitely impact your cooling.
In the meanwhile, I switched on the computer, so everything's connected. It's up and running right now. As you can see, all the fans are spinning.
Yes.
And we're already into the BIOS. Very important here, by default, this will be switched off. So
XMP.
let me get a little bit closer.
Yes.
So XMP, if you, it depends a bit on the situation, on what chipset you are, because these are 3200 megahertz modules. I'm going to switch it on, but still the 2666 right here, that's the maximum the memory controller can do.
What's the difference between XMP profile 1 and 2?
Sometimes they have like several profiles with different timings, different frequencies, different voltages. So some memory modules have got more presets basically in there. It's called SPD, and that's where all the presets, memory settings are stored. But in this situation, it's only one. So that one is enabled, and I'm going to. Oh, I actually disabled it. It was enabled. So it says I didn't make any changes because it was enabled. But if you reset your BIOS, I didn't do that for this one, then XMP will be off. It's off by default. So make sure to switch it on if you build it for the first time.
Also here you can always check if for the first time you build a PC and you put the cooling on it and you want to make sure everything's working correctly. In the BIOS it will show you the temperature for the CPU and GPU, for example. It can read it out. So if there's anything wrong or the cooling paste wasn't applied correctly, you will get a warning in the BIOS, and that gives you a chance to power down the system, check if everything was done correctly, or maybe even repaste it just to be sure, or reseat the cooler. That might be enough. But yeah, so that has saved my ass sometimes when I actually did something wrong.
So we're fully powered on. As you can see, I didn't close the case yet. I did that on purpose. I always fire it on first to see if it works. And you should be able to capture something right now. There we go.
Yes. Can you click the capture your mouse?
Yes, I can.
Thingy. There you go.
Go away. Enable mouse
Marvin
cursor.
says, can I have
Yeah,
that beast? I promise I'll take care of it. Well, we're actually building it because we are going to use it as our streaming.
This is our
dedicated
new streaming PC.
Yes. So we are going to need it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So as you can see, Core i5 10400, and under the memory tab, you can now see it runs at 2666 memory frequency. Here within the SPD, you can see the several settings you have. So if you don't enable XMP, for example, these will actually run at 2133 megahertz. So there you're losing performance if you don't switch on XMP, so make sure to do so. As you can see, it has one XMP profile here. That one is 3200 megahertz, but it's currently limited to 2666 by the memory controller in the CPU. With B560, that's not the case anymore. If your memory can do 3200, you can definitely do that on your motherboard as well. So yeah, it works.
Nice.
That means we're going to put all the panels back on, and our streaming PC is ready.
Yeah. So in the meantime, what I will do is I will draw 2 winners, because I noticed we haven't drawn that many winners this stream. Not that we are in such a rush to get rid of all our codes, but still, I want to make sure enough people are winning something. Yeah, I think after this we might do one more and then call it a day. But so you can still participate. Go to msi.com/2/insider or follow the Gleam link in Twitch or YouTube chat and perform a couple of actions. The more actions you perform, the better your chance of winning. Claim a loyalty bonus if it's available to you, if you're a regular viewer. And yeah, I will call out our next winners. First one is Steve Smith. So congratulations, Steve. You also win a $20 Steam wallet code. We'll send that out to you as soon as possible. And our second winner's name is called Gigaram. Nice name. So also congratulations, Gigaram. We will also make sure you get the code as soon as possible. And hope you enjoy it. And so now, back to Mike.
Yeah, we're all done with the PC. Well, at least from the hardware side of things. But we're also upgrading some more stuff next week.
Yes.
And we're going to choose the best streaming gear, because right now we have the PC, but of course it's a dedicated streaming PC, and we will be using other systems with it. So for example, when playing games, when doing demonstrations, etc. Of course we need to capture that PC on this PC.
Yes.
We can do that through the network, but we can also use some dedicated hardware, and our friends from Elgato send us some nice
package.
stuff.
Yes.
Sneak peek of what you can expect next week.
Yep.
We've got
4 HDMI inputs, and that's,
yep,
I think, up to 4K.
Yeah.
Each of them.
No, these are yeah, that's 4K 30 or 1080p 60.
Yes.
This one, for example, can do 4K 60 as well. It's a single HDMI.
Yes.
We also have a USB one, so we will show you several options.
That's an external capture card. The other two are internal.
Yeah. And we also got something else, not a capture card, but also a very useful device if you're going to stream.
Ooh.
The Stream Deck.
Yes.
To easily control your scenes. For example, compatible with a lot of the streaming software we talked about today, like OBS, XSplit, etc. So make sure to check it out. We'll go through the different capturing methods, options, all other kind of equipment that you will need when doing a live stream.
Yep.
So make sure to join us next week.
Yeah.
We'll be here same place, same time, and then we will basically finish our streaming setup.
Exactly, and
our updated streaming setup, I should
any
say.
other questions you might have about the streaming setup or anything. So let us know what you want to know.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for joining, guys. Bye-bye.